Thanks so much for joining us on this Sunday. In just 2 days, the Liberal government will table its highly anticipated budget. It will be the first look at the state of Canada's finances since Mark Carney became Prime Minister. And the countdown is on for Carney and his ministers to find opposition support and dodge a potential second election this year.
I am 100% confident that this budget is the right budget for this country at this moment. This is not a game. This is a critical moment in the global economy, or it's an important moment in the global economy. It's a critical moment for our country.
I sat down with the leader of the official opposition, Pierre Poilievre, in an exclusive interview ahead of Tuesday's federal budget. Pierre Poilievre is, of course, the leader of the official opposition. He joins me in studio. Nice to see you, Mr. Poilievre.
It's good to be with you.
Really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to start with some news that happened on Friday. The Supreme Court struck down another mandatory minimum, this one in relation to possession and access of child pornography. The Supreme Court has struck down a lot of mandatory minimum laws since 2015. But I wonder, in this case, what response you think the government should have in this instance?
Well, first of all, the accused and convicted offenders are appalling, frankly. These are two men who had possession of literally hundreds of images and videos of children. One of them had 377 images of children between 3 and 6 years old. Another had hundreds of videos of children between 5 and 10. They created demand for pornographic material that was made by torturing, humiliating, and defiling innocent children who will never recover from it from the rest of their lives. And frankly, they were originally given 1-year sentences. That was appealed. It should have been way more than 1-year sentence. There should be a mandatory minimum of more, probably 5 or even 10 years. So this ruling is wrong-headed, and I would oppose the ruling, and I would use the notwithstanding clause to overturn it. And my future government will introduce mandatory prison sentences for possession of child pornography so that dirtbags like this go away for a very long time.
Some of the reasoning from the justices was that, they could see a scenario where two 18-year-olds exchange images and then have a mandatory minimum imposed on them. I don't know what you make of that reasoning.
I think the Supreme Court needs to get away from these imaginary scenarios. The scenario before them was two men in possession over a long period of time of hundreds of images and videos that were made by torturing innocent children. And with those facts in front of them, their conclusion actually should have been that the sentence should have been much more than the 1 year and 9 months that the two dirtbag offenders received. They should go away for a very long time. Frankly, if I had my way as a father, I would lock them up and throw away the key.
I want to move on to the budget, because that is, of course, sort of the concern and the focus of the week ahead. That you have criticized the Prime Minister for saying that sacrifices are going to be needed by Canadians. You have also said the deficit must stay at $42 billion. How do you keep the deficit at $42 billion and not make sacrifices and not ask Canadians to make sacrifices?
Well, I think it's a false juxtaposition because the deficit is causing the sacrifices. The more the government spends, the more things cost. The cost of government is driving up the cost of living. These deficits are raising the prices that people pay in real time. It's called inflation, and we know that the source of inflation is when government prints money to spend what it does not have. This bids up the price of goods, and it's why. It's no coincidence that during the time the Liberals doubled the national debt, they also doubled housing costs and doubled lineups at food banks. So
except some of the things that will be in the budget will be for housing to help Canadians. That is what they are proposing to do to help Canadians in this moment.
But with every dollar they spend comes from Canadians. And so they remember Justin Trudeau and the previous Liberal government launched a bunch of expensive housing programs saying it would help. It doubled housing costs. They announced food programs. Well, they doubled food bank lineups. So the more government spends, the more it drives up the cost of living. We can't have a costly budget that makes life more costly for the Canadian people. We want them to keep their promise. It was only a year ago that Liberals said they would keep the deficit down to $41 billion. Now, Mark Carney was elected saying he would spend less. And since that time, he's spending, his deficit spending is 100% more.
But you know that his reasoning, what he will tell Canadians on Tuesday, is that he's investing. It's meant to spur investment in the Canadian economy. Things like defense, housing, as I said, industries dealing with tariffs. What of those things do you not agree with? Because he believes that that investment will actually attract private capital and will force the economy to sort of rebuild in the face of Donald Trump.
You know, it seems like a familiar line because it's exactly what the Liberals promised in 2015. 10 years ago, when they ran on producing small temporary deficits that would invest. And what happened? They doubled the national debt. And what happened to investment? It dropped more than any time in Canadian history and more than any other G7 country. Deficits are not investments. They reduce investments because they borrow money out of the economy that would otherwise have been invested in productive private enterprises, factories, mines, pipelines, LNG plants. So when government borrows, it actually subtracts from the economy by sucking up capital that would have been used for productive purposes. So if we want investment, there's only one thing the government needs to do: get out of the way. There are trillions of dollars of private investment ready to dig mines, build pipelines, set up LNG plants, build ports. We know that money exists because they're doing it in other countries around the world where there is fast approvals, less red tape, low taxes. They get private sector investment, and that's what we want to launch.
But by that explanation, by that rationale, why would you accept a $42 billion deficit? You know, Sean Spears, who was the economic advisor to your former boss, recently said on The Hub, that is a massive shift for a conservative to actually even fathom a $42 billion deficit. Why say that's okay?
It's not okay.
But you're willing to accept it, you're saying.
It's not okay.
Yeah.
It is, but it is the disastrous state we're in after 10 years of Liberal government. We have a situation where it is impossible this fiscal year, because Mr. Carney, maybe if you'd introduced the budget at the beginning of the fiscal year like most normal, competent prime ministers would have done, and which all prime ministers used to do, we could have affected the deficit. But, Rosie, the half to two-thirds of the fiscal year is behind us. The money's already spent.
Sure.
So I would be lying to people if I said that I owned a time machine that would allow me to go back and unspend money that Mark Carney has been spending for the last seven months. So I would like a zero deficit, but the Liberals have put us in this mess, and I work with what I got.
So you are not going to support the budget. There's no way you could do that. You can't lose an election, say Mark Carney's the worst, and then support the budget. That's not possible. Right?
Oh, well, I haven't seen the budget. I haven't seen the
question.
budget. I don't have telepathic powers to tell you what's in it. If it were to bring down the cost of living, an affordable budget for an affordable living is something that I support.
None of these things are, you know what the deficit's going to be. On that premise alone, I don't imagine you can support the budget.
But in addition to the deficit, I came up with some very collaborative ideas. And I asked, why isn't the government at least considering them? I've said, let's bring down the cost of food by getting rid of the industrial carbon tax on farmers and the people who feed us. Let's get rid of the food packaging tax that adds $1 billion to food prices. The fuel standard tax that's going to jack up gas prices 17 cents. Get rid of all that. And that would make food more affordable for the 2.2 million people lined up at food banks. And if the government were in a collaborative mode, recognizing they only have a minority, they would accept my ideas for an affordable budget for an affordable Canada.
Are you prepared to have an election if that's where we end up?
I'm prepared for an affordable budget. That's what I want the government to introduce. And I'm not going to speak about the plans thereafter because I haven't seen it. But we're not going to. We don't believe that the choice has to be as the Liberals presented, which is between a costly budget and a costly election. You can have an affordable budget, and I've given Mr. Carney a plan for that. All he has to do is accept it.
President Trump said again that talks are not going to be restarted with Canada. Should Canada offer further concessions, or is at this stage no deal better than a bad deal?
Well, why again are we choosing between two terrible options when we were promised, Mr. Carney promised a good deal by July 21st. He promised he could negotiate a win with President Trump. Those were his promises. Now, some might say, look, it's unrealistic to expect to get that from President Trump. So why did he promise it?
Well,
it was not his only, it wasn't just that it was a promise. It was the promise.
Except you promised, when you were running to be Prime Minister, that tariffs would be paused across the board and that you would get a deal with Donald Trump with tariffs paused. I mean, that also doesn't seem very plausible given the way the president has behaved.
Well, I have to be prime minister for you to find out.
Well,
right? But what we do know is that Mr. Carney is prime minister, has been for 7 months, and these are the results that he's got. Since he promised to get rid of American tariffs, they've doubled and tripled in the case of softwood lumber. He says he's going to open up other markets, so he meets with the Chinese. And what do? They increase tariffs on canola, seafood, and pork. He meets with the Indians. What do? Increase tariffs on our peas by 30%. He meets with the Brits. What do? They hit us with blockades of our beef. It seems like everywhere Mark Carney goes, with these grand meetings and photo ops, we end up with more tariffs. His failures abroad are costing us at home.
He met with the Chinese president, though, and they made a decision that their officials were going to get together and try and solve the trade irritants. He is trying to make some progress, no? You don't see those things as a bit of progress?
What progress? Can you name one tariff line that he's reduced abroad?
No, not at this stage, no.
Not one. No. He said 7 months.
So what would
He's been on 20 trips.
What would you like to see him do then? What do you think is the missing piece here?
Keep his promise.
Yeah, but how? It's easy to say that. It's the how that's difficult.
Well, the how, I said that I would face President Trump and the rest of the world from a position of strength. Right now, we're in a position of weakness. The Americans know we can't sell our goods to anyone else because we don't have pipelines and LNG plants to get our most valuable export to other markets. I would pass the Canadian Sovereignty Act, which would rapidly greenlight and legalize pipelines, LNG plants, and other infrastructure.
But the government is doing some of that. There's an LNG plant that's happening. There are major projects.
Approved by Stephen Harper.
Well, there's an expansion of it. There's an expansion of it. And the Major Projects Office, it does allow them to get around laws and regulations. You know, that's the goal of it.
That's the goal. We're 7 months in, and the clock is ticking. I think we've been through enough goal setting, and now it's time for results achieved, and we're not getting any results. Mr. Carney won't even tell us if he supports an oil pipeline to the Pacific. His energy minister says it's just too hypothetical. What do you mean hypothetical? We had a project that was approved prior to the Liberals taking office. So here we are with no progress on expanding our resources or getting things done. It's all very good that he's setting up these offices and agencies in Ottawa, but I've got news for him. We're not going to make our economy economically independent by setting up new bureaucracies in Ottawa.
I want to ask you about leadership, because I know that it's probably on your mind. You have a leadership review coming up in January. How confident are you that you will be okay, that you will survive that vote?
Very.
Yeah. Why? What makes you confident?
Well, because I'm going to focus on doing my job. And people say, well, are you going to get distracted with this? And the answer is no, because the same thing I have to do in January is what I have to do on Election Day, which is to do a good job.
Yeah.
And that means doing what I was sent here to do by the record 8.3 million people who voted for us, which is to fight for an affordable life, fight for our young people to be able to afford homes, fight for parents to be able to have safe streets for their kids to grow up on. And that's the job I'm doing, and that's why I believe I'll win the support of both the party and the country.
And you think that the party will be willing to give you a second chance? Because the last time they did that was Stephen Harper.
And look how that turned out.
Yeah,
we
that's
were in
right.
power for 10 years. So
but do you think
I'm
that
glad you pointed that one out.
Do you think that they'll be willing to give you a second chance, Mr. Poilievre?
I think so. I'm fighting for the things that our party and our country need. Mm-hmm. And the great thing about our party is we're united around the things that we believe in and are fighting for. We want balanced budgets and low taxes so people can afford good lives. We want to lock up criminals so that our people are safe. We want to get immigration and borders back under control. We want a common Canadian identity that unites us all. We want to bring back the promise of this country, that anyone who works hard gets a great life. And so the great thing I have, the benefit I have, is a party whose values and interests are aligned with the country's. And that's why I think both January and the next election will go in the right direction.
Listen, really appreciate you coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for your time.
Enjoy. Thank you.